Thank you for viewing the second part of our video on improving content area reading comprehension using the intelligent tutoring system for the structure strategy. My name is Dr. K. Wijakuma. I'm Associate Professor of Information Sciences and Technology at Penn State Beaver. My co-principal investigators on this project are Dr. Bonnie J.F. Meyer and Dr. Puiwa Lei, both from the College of Education at Penn State University at University Park. The research reported here was supported by the Institute of Education Sciences at the U.S. Department of Education through grant number R305G030072 to Penn State University. The opinions expressed here are those of the authors and do not represent views of the Institute or the U.S. Department of Education. Please take the time to view part 1 of our video available at this site prior to viewing this video. As stated in part 1 of our video, we set out to address the challenge of improving content area reading comprehension with students in grades 4 through 8 in rural and suburban schools. Our goal was to solve the problem by teaching the children the structure strategy delivered through an intelligent tutoring system. And this project was designed to improve reading comprehension by first showing children how they can create strategic memories of the text that they read, and then being able to apply this knowledge to summarizing and inference building, application of knowledge, and also in standardized tests of reading comprehension and content area reading in general. In this video, we present information about the ITSS efficacy study in grades 4 through 8 and findings from our recent research study. Additionally, we present information for teachers on how they may integrate the structure strategy with other practices that they use in the classrooms today. We conducted the ITSS efficacy studies in 3 states with over 60 schools and over 14,000 students using our system. We also had over 200 teachers participate in this research study. The 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th grade ITSS efficacy studies used a fully randomized controlled trial design with a within-school random assignment of classrooms to either use ITSS or be part of the control group. That means within each school there were classrooms that used ITSS and were in the control group. We used a pre-test and post-test design. Both pre- and post-test had a standardized test of reading comprehension, which was the Gray silent reading test, and researcher-designed measures of reading comprehension dealing with the signaling word use, main idea construction, comparison competency, and so on. ITSS classrooms used the software for 30 to 45 minutes each week for the school year after they were pre-tested. Students using ITSS proceeded at their own pace, and the ITSS system kept track of where they were and started them up every time they came back to the lab. Teachers were provided with a short professional development in order to facilitate the project being implemented correctly. The primary research question for this research project was whether 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th grade classrooms using the ITSS system as a partial substitute for the standard language arts curriculum outperform control classrooms on standardized tests of reading comprehension as well as researcher-designed measures of reading comprehension. Secondary questions focused on rural versus suburban differences, gender differences, and reading level of student. On the screen at the moment, you see the pre-test and post-test scores for both the ITSS and control classrooms at grade 4 and 5, also further broken out by rural and suburban for each grade level. As you can see, the pre to post-test changes between rural and suburban schools were pretty similar, and the differences between the ITSS and control classrooms are also presented here. I expand further on the 4th grade comparison text structure competency scores. The signaling test had an effect size of 0.28. The main idea quality was pretty moderate at 0.49. The total recall was 0.11, and the comparison competency was 0.18. It is important to note that the 4th grade students in our research study only performed 2 of the 3 tasks that are performed by all other grade levels. This was that they would click on the signaling words and they wrote a main idea. They didn't proceed to writing a full recall from memory because the 4th grade typing skills was less effective than the 5th, 7th, and 8th grade students, and therefore the 4th grade received a slightly shortened version of the software. As shown on this screen, the 5th grade Gray Silent Reading test scores for ITSS at pre-test was 27.82, at post-test it was 35.49. In contrast, the control classrooms had a score of 27.06 at pre-test and 32.64 at post-test. This showed an effect size of 0.2 for the Gray Silent Reading test for 5th grade classrooms. Before I explain most of our important findings, I'd also like to note that we conducted separate analyses for teachers and their classrooms that used the system with high fidelity. This means that the teachers actually followed up with students when they were found to be either gaming the system or not writing answers for the questions that were asked in the system. The teachers followed up with the research team and asked questions about the student performance and so on, and these teachers' classrooms were analyzed separately, and their results were remarkable and showed effect sizes for the Gray Silent Reading as high as 0.36 and main idea quality with effect sizes of 0.83. These are remarkable findings for such a large-scale study. So in a nutshell, our findings are that ITSS classrooms statistically significantly outperform their control classroom counterparts on the standardized reading test of comprehension, the GSRT, as well as the researcher-designed measures of reading comprehension. This is after ITSS was used for 1 class period a week for 30 to 45 minutes each week for the full academic year. Students reading below grade level made higher gains than other students on some of the measures, and teachers consistently reported that writing quality improved also after using ITSS. As stated in the previous slide, there were stronger findings, stronger results when teachers reviewed the student logs regularly and followed up with students. In some cases, it was that the students were gaming the system where they would type in nonsense answers. The research team regularly sent such reports out to the teachers, and the teachers who followed up, their classrooms performed much better than even the large-scale study results showed. So therefore, the teacher role is critical in technology-based learning environments, and the teacher must also understand the text structure well enough to respond to student questions, especially when they are working on the ITSS system. Finally, in our study, we presented the comparison text structure first, followed by the problem and solution text structure and cause and effect text structures. So we have shown that these text structures can be presented to students as young as 4th grade and also works well with students at 5th, 7th, and 8th grades. Many teachers and other researchers have reported that the comparison text structure is quite hard for students to process, and therefore many text structure based interventions have started with sequence and description text structures. whereas we have started with the comparison text structure and have shown these impressive results. Before I proceed to how teachers may integrate the text structure approach with their existing practices, I'd also like to note that many of the research tables presented here are available on our website, and many of them will also be coming out in publications soon, and those publications will also be available on our website. I must also note that the 5th, 7th, and 8th grade research results are being currently reviewed for publication, and therefore I'm not presenting those results on this presentation at this time. So now I'm going to move on into how teachers can integrate the structure strategy with other classroom practices that they currently use. We have spoken with many teachers who always use summarizing as an instructional approach with students to help them understand the text, and this type of activity is part of many state level and national level standardized tests for reading comprehension. So if you are going to use summarizing and the students know about the structure strategy, we recommend that the teacher prompt the students to find signaling words, classify the text structure, and use the main idea pattern that the structure strategy presents to seek important information in the text. We also recommend that the students use the main idea pattern to write their summary, thereby not only writing a very good summary, but also creating an effective mental representation that's very strategic in its organization. We have recently learned that some curricula recommend that students read the first and last sentence of the passage to find a main idea, which seems at the surface level like a simple enough task for students to do, but that type of activity actually discourages a student from reading the entire passage and actually does not work in some instances. So we highly recommend that the students are taught to read the entire passage using the main idea pattern to find the most important information in the text to place in their summaries. We have also seen teachers using question generation as part of their language arts curriculum, which is a valuable tool for students. And we recommend that the teacher prompt the students to ask questions about the most important information in the text. So the main idea pattern again can be used as a source for generating questions. We can also suggest that students are guided to make inferences about the text by combining the main idea information and prior knowledge. Additionally, you can prompt the students to ask questions connecting the text structures. For example, you can say, the article presents the problem and solution. Can you think of the cause for the problem? Which would make the student very easily see the connection between the cause, the problem, and the solution. We have seen many teachers using building background knowledge as a prerequisite to the actual reading comprehension task, and this is a very good activity for students to perform before they start reading a passage. And in this case, the teacher can prompt the students to create effective memory structures that further assist in integrating the new information that they will be reading with the prior knowledge that they have just created. So in this case, if they're going to read about crocodilians and alligators, the teacher could brainstorm different types of reptiles and ask the students to create some memory structures that will help them in processing the new information that's coming in, still using the text structure. Additionally, you can present vocabulary related to the text within the text structure framework as well. As students are reading, and in some cases even when they're building the background knowledge, teachers sometimes use diagrams or graphical representations of the text to make it easy for the students to process the information. In this example, we show a Venn diagram as one approach that some teachers may visualize the information in the text. In this case, we actually highly recommend that the teacher showcases the similarities and differences, but also showcase on what basis some of these items were compared, especially by presenting things in parallel structures. So in this case, if you are going to compare two types of whales, you can actually look at what kind of food they eat and how big they are, food and size, as being presented in parallel structures, so that the students actually realize that these are what both items are being compared on. So you should also focus on the important parts of the text and reduce the reliance on any peripherally related images that may or may not add anything for the student's comprehension of the text. A very important note for all teachers who use the textbooks as one of their primary resources for teaching in their classroom: students need consistent and regular practice in reading and writing with text structure. So this becomes a little bit of a challenge because not all textbooks are written and signaled correctly. And so the teacher may actually need to impose text structure on poorly written textbooks by reading the text themselves before the classroom and then making note of how the text actually could be rewritten or signaled appropriately for students to be able to extract meaning from the text. The students actually, once they realize that this is a problem solution passage or a cause and effect passage, they will be able to extract more information, and the most important information, much more effectively than if they were reading an unsignaled passage continuously looking for something that's important in there. Most textbooks also do not present the main idea patterns used by the structure strategy. We highly recommend that the teachers use this and have either a big poster on their wall or something that will allow the students to focus on what was being compared and on what basis they were being compared. Or in the case of problems and solutions, to look for the problem and look for the solution, and in many cases also look for the cause for the problems, and so on. A very important skill for teachers in the language arts classroom today is being able to adapt for students who are reading below grade level or who are experiencing problems with reading and comprehending texts. So one of the approaches that is frequently used is to pre-teach vocabulary. As I stated earlier, it would be wonderful if the vocabulary is presented again using some text structure. Another approach that works in tandem with this is to incrementally add ideas being compared. This, for example, in the passage presented in part 1 of our video, comparing Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. You can actually start by comparing presidents on the order of presidency, then add on the jobs they held before they became president, and finally add on the number of children that they had. A very important part for students reading below grade level is to remind them to integrate with their prior knowledge. And if they are lacking the prior knowledge, then it is even more essential that they understand the text structure and how their memory of that text structure based passage should be formed, and so that it'll actually help them build further information and further knowledge structures on those memory structures that they have built. You can also encourage the efficacy, the reading efficacy of the students by showing them how easy it is to find the important ideas in the text without having to read and reread and reread when students are experiencing difficulties in identifying what the main idea of the passage is. Reading and writing go hand in hand. Reading comprehension is required before students can actually write either a persuasive essay or an informational essay. And writing is a way of externalizing what the students have within their memory structures. So reading and writing go hand in hand. In our case, we are recommending that students learn how to write persuasive and informational writing by first selecting a text structure as the organizing framework for their writing, and going ahead and writing a main idea, using the main idea pattern to outline the writing that they're going to be doing, to use signaling words to transition their paragraphs, and to use rich text structures such as comparison, problem and solution, and cause and effect. We'd also like to reduce the reliance on using sequence and description text structures, which are frequently used by students, for example, when they write first, second, next, last, first, next, last, whatever. All of them are focused on sequence and description text structures. As I stated in part 1 of our video, these types of text structures are basically stringing along a long list of ideas that are not that effective or efficient in the student's memory, and they're harder to remember and harder to recall, and they're harder to associate. So instead, we recommend that the teachers encourage students to use the richer text structures such as comparison, problem and solution, and cause and effect. In the case of persuasive writing, we recommend that students actually are shown how they can use comparison text structure, for example, to persuade someone to do something. In this case, if the student is required to write an essay to persuade their parents to get a cat instead of a dog, they can actually compare dogs and cats on how much they eat, how much exercise they require, and how much they shed to convince the parents to get a cat instead of a dog. Strong persuasion requires statements of problems and solutions, and comparing solution alternatives also to suggest the optimal solution that is being recommended by the student. In working with such a large number of schools, we have found that teachers use many different approaches for teaching writing in their classrooms. Some use a plan, draft, revise, finalize approach. Some use 4-square method. Some suggest that they use a 5-paragraph approach, and all of these things can easily be combined with the structure strategy. Again, the students need to be able to select the text structure that organizes their writing. They need to be able to write a main idea using the main idea pattern for the summary or outline of their writing task. They need to use signaling words as transition words, and they should be encouraged to use the richer text structures to formulate their writing. This slide presents a little example on how the 4-square approach can be combined with the structure strategy. In this case, the main idea of the passage actually is written in the middle, where it says there are differences and similarities between blue whales and beaked whales. And then the 4 items that they are being compared on, size, teeth, what they eat, and where they live, are presented in the 4 squares. The student can then expand on this by writing a passage that describes how whales, blue whales and beaked whales, are similar and different using these factors. In summary, the ITSS efficacy studies have shown very good results in improving content area reading comprehension as measured by a standardized test of reading comprehension as well as researcher-designed measures of reading comprehension. At this time, we are actually expanding the ITSS infrastructure to specifically include extensions for Spanish-speaking English language learners, and the project is titled SWELL, and we have received funding again from the U.S. Department of Education to support the design and development of specific adaptations for students who speak Spanish. The specific adaptations that we are building include something called Spanish scaffolding and a hybrid version that combines the English lessons with specific assistance for Spanish words and sentence level help. We are also performing iterative studies and modifications to the system using the information we are gaining. At this time, we are also extending our program to formalize writing and to assist students with writing using text structure. We are also expanding our research to make sure that we are able to individualize further to the learner's needs. We are also creating extensions for hearing impaired learners, and we have created segments of advanced teacher professional development that will be made available on Adobe Connect or on this YouTube video site. So summarizing part 1 and part 2 of our videos available to you. In a nutshell, we have actually set out to address the problem of content area reading comprehension with students in 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th grades. Our solution was to implement the structure strategy on a web-based intelligent tutoring system and delivering that approach to students for one classroom period a week for an entire academic year, with pre- and post-tests showing that ITSS classrooms outperformed their control counterparts on all measures of reading comprehension, including a standardized test of reading comprehension and researcher-designed measures. We believe that we have achieved the desired effects of students creating strategic memory of the text, which is efficient and effective. We believe that they have been able to understand the top-level structure of the text and are able to summarize as shown in the main idea results. Their students are also able to create inferences and apply their knowledge as shown in the standardized test of reading comprehension. And all in all, we have shown improvements in both standardized tests and researcher-designed measures of reading comprehension using ITSS. We thank you for your interest in improving content area reading comprehension and hope you found these 2 videos to be useful. We hope to encourage you to continue to use the structure strategy and integrate it with all your existing practices. If you'd like to contact us, the website will be presented on the next slide, and my email address is also available to you on the next slide. Please keep in touch via email or through our website available at itss.psu.edu. We thank the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences for funding this very important research study, and we hope you have gained a great deal of knowledge from these 2 presentations.